Welcome everybody to our webinar today. I'm going to give people a minute here to jump in if they haven't joined yet. I'll just do some prerequisites. So welcome to our webinar. Again, the webinar is today, From Demo to Yes, How to Close Deals Faster with Hands-on Developer-First Demos and POCs. I am Sean Lauer. I am the VP of Marketing and Product here at Instruct, and I will toss it over to Josh to introduce himself and give a little bit more details about what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so I'm Josh Plow from Instruct. I lead our solutions engineering and customer success teams here at Instruct. Today on this episode 2 of our Hot Start series, we're going to be really focused on pre-sales, sales engineering use cases. So I'm sure many of those that are on today are either in a sales engineering or some sort of pre-sales function. And that's where my focus will be. And you know, in sales engineering, which I have been doing for about 10 years or so during my career, as a sales engineer, our job is pretty simple to describe, but very difficult to do. And that is, how do we get prospects to see value in our platform as quickly as possible, right? The reality of the situation is too many proof of concepts that you give to a prospect take weeks or months to get the prospect into a place where they can even achieve simple functionality or just use the product. And all that time is wasted when you give prospect a POC and they're still confused about basic workflows of your product after months of time. You get very frustrated, right? And you're not able to get to the point where you are able to actually do the thing that you are tasked with doing, which is getting them to see that value. And that's where Instruct can help, right? We equip SE teams with repeatable production-like hands-on labs that prospects can launch instantly. So there's no waiting for POCs to be spun up, no waiting for somebody to come and help answer basic questions. It's all there in a sandbox, and it educates the prospect in real time on what they should be doing within the product. In short, this is going to lead to less setup time, better qualification, and you'll also have metrics on the back end to decide whether this prospect is doing the right things or not to be able to get value out of your platform. So I want to hand it over to Sean to kick things off and talk a little bit about how Instruct is helping go-to-market teams with pre-sales POCs and demos, just as I kind of alluded to there.
Awesome. Thank you. And just a reminder for those who are with us, if you have questions, please feel free to add them in the chat. We will try to get to them at the end. Again, the point of these Hot Start webinars is to be kind of quick hitters. But if we have time for questions, we will. And if not, we will follow up with answers after the fact. All right, so to dive in a little bit more about Instruct, for maybe those who aren't as familiar with us, we are the leading platform for go-to-market teams to drive product adoption through hands-on developer experiences. And what do we mean by go-to-market teams? Well, we see value from our customers across marketing, sales or pre-sales, and education, so onboarding, upskilling, et cetera, of current customers. So with marketing teams specifically, we see folks generating more high quality leads by getting the product into the hands of potential customers more quickly. From a sales or pre-sales perspective, kind of as Josh was just speaking to, we see customers getting to value and closing deals faster because they're able to have their users get hands-on with their POCs, POVs, and demos much more quickly. And then lastly, on the education front, whether it's a customer success team or technical enablement team, we really see that faster onboarding and improved retention because people are actually experiencing your product in a real world scalable experience. So again, today, the focus is sales or pre-sales, but we see the value kind of across the entire motion with our customers. So let's dive a little bit more into that audience that is the focus today. So here's what we hear on a daily, weekly, monthly basis from SE leaders in the field. We hear that setup environments are slow, they're clunky, they're inconsistent, and ultimately that creates higher risk for a poor user experience with potential customers, with prospects. That is obviously not ideal. Everybody wants to avoid that. We also see and hear that POCs drag on for extended periods of time. They take a lot of resources and they pull those resources into a lot of kind of fine tuning of one-off setups, as opposed to things that are repeatable and thus they take up valuable time that could actually be spent elsewhere. And then lastly, even after all of that, it's hard to capture proof and understand kind of what the next steps are based on the signals that you do have. So there are ways to get more meaningful signals through hands-on experiences than, say, if you were watching just videos or sifting through slideware. That's really not how you're going to get the most valuable signals from buyers. So our goal at Instruct and the value that we deliver to our customers on a daily basis is this kind of repeatable, no install opportunity that reduces the lift on SEs. You get to value more quickly, and ultimately you're going to shorten sales cycles. So speaking of that buying audience, in this case, maybe for those tuning in today, that would be developers. Developers want to use a product immediately. I think that's sort of a cliche at this point. Developers want to get their hands on your product as quick as possible. And we really saw that when we did a research study earlier this year, the state of developer adoption, which you guys can find on our website if you want to learn more. We learned through that the real hands-on environments are amongst the most effective ways to drive awareness, evaluation, and adoption. Maybe that's not a surprise to folks, but the surprise we did see is that only a third of the companies we surveyed are actually offering interactive labs. So again, whether it's marketing, sales, education, you're going to get value much more quickly when you allow people to get their hands on. And as we found, there's a big opportunity for pre-sales teams to differentiate through those instant frictionless product access that also qualifies and is honestly better than, say, video views or form fills. You're not going to get the signals you need or you want through those types of mediums. A little bit more background here. At Instruct, we have coined the term IQLs. So if you're familiar with marketing, you understand the term MQL, which is marketing qualified leads. IQLs are Instruct qualified leads. These leads, from our perspective and from our customers' perspectives, are much more high intent leads that have actually engaged with real product experiences. They have stronger buying signals than MQLs specifically, for sure. And because these IQLs have actually gotten hands-on engagement. So for pre-sales, you can treat these IQLs as qualified evaluators entering that kind of guided POC demo experience because they've already touched the product. That first call you have with them is not about explaining the basics. You're already beyond that because they've already gotten their hands on. And at that point, you're really just kind of about, scoping proof and getting to value. So just at a high level, again, we bucket these signals, these IQL signals, into three areas. One being engage, two being signal, three being convert. You can see a little bit more about them here in this chart. On the engage front, for SEs, this is really where you guys can lean in. There's a lot of more like lean in indicators, if you will, here. Things about, engagement depth, progress and completion, feature interaction. It really helps you understand whether maybe this prospect is worth a POC or whether you actually have to do a technical deep dive. On the signal front, this is where the friction points really come in. So, if you want to unblock your plan, and determine, whether a prospect is ready to go to the next steps, you can kind of look at these friction points potentially where users might be getting stuck or asking for help. So it helps you understand where they're at, from their decision-making standpoint. And then lastly, convert. This bucket really tells us about who's evaluating seriously, who's ready to make a decision. Obviously, this is where you really want to focus your time to get them across the finish line to signing on and signing a contract potentially for your product. So across these buckets really help you prioritize accounts, sequence next steps and next actions, and shorten your sales cycles. Lastly here, before I toss it back to Josh, I want to get a little bit more specific about the impact of Instruct and some of the outcomes we see across our customers' pre-sales initiatives. So some of these are, aspects of the sandbox environments that you can create that really allow you to alleviate the pain points that you might be feeling if you don't have those hands-on experiences. So first of all, getting people started quickly, not requiring any sort of installs, people can get hands-on day one just with a click of a button. It's a huge advantage, saves a lot of time. Number two, standardized repeatable POV kits. So again, you don't have to do these one-off experiences that take forever, a lot of fine tuning. You can actually create repeatable content that can be used across multiple customers. Number three, pre-warmed sandboxes, or as we call them, hot starts. Again, this allows no waiting time for your customers, for your users. You can just click start, go, you're immediately in a sandbox. And then lastly, engagement signals that actually drive next steps. So again, you want to have much more high intent signals, much more granular signals that allow you to keep your POVs moving, and you're able to do that within Instruct. So you can see here this quote from one of our customers: by using Instruct Labs in our sales motion, we've eliminated the need for POVs and have driven 30% of closed won revenue through Labs alone. So huge value here for the sales motion. Now to talk a little bit more in depth about how actual customers like this quote here are using the product, I'm going to toss it back to Josh.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the use cases here, how this is actually being done in the field. And this is just one of many examples of our customers delivering content at conferences, at workshops. Elastic has really scaled this out within their organization to their entire pre-sales team. They have over 330 sales engineers that are delivering workshops both in the field and at events like their ElasticCon, which happens globally. And if you can skip to the next slide here, you can see this isn't done just at large scale events, but also in workshops. This is where really the rubber hits the road as a sales engineer. If you are not doing this today, you are missing out on a huge opportunity to make your prospects really see value in your product. They are doing this both in person and virtually to at scale. Over 50 workshops a day with dozens of participants each, focused on specific prospects and customers, driving new features and new product out to the field, and allowing everyone to get hands-on in a scalable way without having to set up unique sandboxes for every single individual. They're just available and ready to go. And then the last use case here, this one is for solo specifically because we have this great photo of folks at a booth taking Instruct Labs, but we are seeing this across a number of different customers, MongoDB, Isovalent, Red Hat, and many others, where they are not just allowing folks to take Instruct Labs in a workshop setting or online in a self-paced setting, but also at their booth, right? If you are a sales engineer, I am sure that you have ran a booth and you've stood there, had prospects come up to you or even customers, and you've had questions about your product and you have to explain on the fly, maybe of a demo. But imagine that they come and they just use your product instantly. There's no wait, no delay for them to see what your product's about. And then you can add on top of that some of the context and the value add to describe exactly what they're seeing. So that's what Instruct can enable at your booth if you are a sales engineer out there in the field doing these types of activities. So the next thing that I want to go through here is a live demo. And as part of this live demo, I also want to give you guys the ability to get hands-on as well. So I want to show some customer examples of how our customers are, I'm just trying to find the share screen button again here, how our customers are leveraging us in a self-paced manner, and then I'll go right into the demo. Real built out for scale program, MongoDB. You can see each of these buttons is a lab. Just wanted to give you a sense of the scale. They have hundreds and hundreds of labs that they are delivering globally, multilingual, all of that, to get anyone from all the way in high school, all the way through a very senior, seasoned database expert, educated on their product. Similarly, Datadog has a huge program that they've built out with labs that are embedded right into the an iframe within their LMS. This allows, as a sales engineer, you have a library of content that you can provide your prospects so that they don't have to, again, have that unique POV environment that's specific to them. Let them learn about your product in a hands-on way without having to go watch videos and read documentation pages. You can see here instructions on the right, actual sandbox, real live sandbox on the left that's running with a full IDE, a chat bot, They've even, Datadog has done some unique things to add a help page and things like that. But really the possibilities are endless. And then some more minimalist approaches just to get a sandbox out there. Elastic has a sandbox, a playground where they just have a page, they embed instruct. This is timed out, but when I click start, it will bring up the Elastic environment and give you access to Elastic right away. Similarly, HashiCorp is doing the same thing where they have a Terraform sandbox. You can launch right within the docs pages, get access to Terraform immediately. So instead of just reading the docs page, you have access to that environment. So let's go into an actual lab, where this is just a demo lab that I like to use to go through what Instruct can do here. If you wouldn't mind someone else from the Instruct team, we can share the link out so you guys can take this lab yourself. And what this is a environment with a terminal, a code editor. We even have a website. This could be a SaaS environment or a web page and a feedback page, right? I can get feedback from my learner about exactly what they have seen within the environment. Now, notice that this spins up instantly. I didn't have to go configure anything, and this can be done at scale. So whether we had 20 participants on this webinar or 500, I can give this to every single person and have them have the same exact environment. It's really powerful if I'm running several POVs or POCs at the same time, and I want to get a lot of content out to those prospects and have them learn about my software. So you can see, again, live environment, cloud native, running on hyperscale infrastructure. And I'm gonna just go through and follow some commands. What is Ollama? Okay, I can read about what exactly this tool is. Turns out it's a platform that can run LLMs. I'm gonna install this on this Ubuntu machine. And I can see more information about what Ollama supports while I'm waiting for this to install. I can go over to the library, see all of the different LLMs that I could install here. And then I can, as I follow the instructions, install one of those LLMs. Now, as I go through this process, notice that there is a check button at the bottom right, which is going to validate that I've actually done what's being requested of me in this lab. This can be really valuable in pre-sales activities, because if you want to make sure that your prospects are actually learning about your software and you're validating that they're really taking the time and investing the time, you're not going to get those very simple questions after 4 or 8 weeks of a POV, because they're actually digesting and learning the content that you've provided to them. And it's verifiable because we have analytics on the back end to show that. So when I click this check button, it's verifying that I've actually completed all of these steps and allows me to go to the next page, or the next challenge, as we call it in Instruct World. So I'll start this. And again, I can proceed with this if I would like to, and I'll let you guys do this on your own time. You can run that LLM, ask it any questions you would like right in this live lab. But on the back end, what we'll see with analytics is how many people have taken the lab. You can see I have a couple plays in the last few days. I can go back 3 months to see how many plays there have been. And what this does for me is, again, Sean mentioned this before, but we have customers that leverage this idea of an Instruct qualified lead, where, hey, this prospect has taken 5 labs of our platform. We may want to engage with them and find out like what's got their interest, or this is clearly a qualified lead that we should be engaged with. And maybe if they're not spending the time and you've sent them the labs over, that's a signal that maybe this is a prospect that needs more work. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong person. Maybe it's not worth my time to invest. So we have user activity that will tell me all of the, again, the usage of each user that we can then engage with after the fact. Now, of course, all of this is very useful within Instruct, but most importantly, we also integrate with Salesforce and HubSpot to send that data over so that you can generate a pipeline, and a qualified pipeline at that. So I'll just stop there. And I want to say, hopefully today we have shown you exactly how hands-on labs can really expedite your overall POC and demo process and allow you to scale in pre-sales and close deals faster. Thank you.
If you want to get in touch with Josh, have a more in-depth conversation, get in touch with me. Here's our contact info. You can scan that QR code to reach out to Josh directly. Again, really, hopefully this session today was able to give you the kind of getting started, hot start, if you will, for the SE use case, the pre-sales use case. Can you speak more about any best practices for managing sandboxes, developing new tutorials, etc.?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? And we see customers doing this at all different scales. So it could be, we have some smaller customers that only have 3 or 4 pieces of content, really easy to manage. Maybe they make a couple updates every few months. And we have other customers, like I mentioned with Elastic, Hashi, Datadog, Mongo, that have huge programs that have been built out, and they have not just a few folks on those teams, but actually dozens of people, right? Over 20 people managing the program, including the lab content. So in terms of managing those sandboxes, and managing the sandboxes is fairly straightforward, right? I think it's all going to depend on your specific software, what it runs on, and how much of an impact changes on your software impact its ability to run within that lab environment, right? So there will have to be some change management there as new releases of your software get released. You will have to potentially make some updates to those tutorials and to those sandboxes, and that will have to be taken into account into your overall program. So it's not a one-size-fits-all answer there, but it's really going to depend on the size and scale of the program.
Cool. All right, let's go to another question quickly here from Mo. What kinds of services can we create in the back end? You showed a website and a terminal. Can we create, let's say, a container registry and then services that will pull container images from there?
Yeah, good question. So it's important to point out that this is a completely ephemeral sandbox. So all of these run for a period of time and then are not available after that unless they're restarted. And you're always starting from that same point. Just if I deploy 100 sandboxes today, or I deploy 100 tomorrow, they're all going to be exactly the same. So with that said, anything that can run on the cloud, whether GCP, Azure, or AWS, can run within Instruct. There are some small caveats there, but generally speaking, if it can run on the cloud, it can run on Instruct. So yes, you could, if you could build a container registry, if you have the skill to do that within GCP, let's say, then you'd be able to do it with Instruct the same way.
Great. Let's take one last question here. Just a reminder, we can follow up with everyone. And if you have more questions, again, you can reach out to us and we can go more in depth. So last question here from Hank. I have a web application that is complicated to deploy and integrate with the customer's environment. Is there a way to run a sandbox for that?
Yes. So from a networking standpoint, all of our sandboxes, and you can test this theory even in the one we just provided you or in any of our customer examples, they all have access to the internet to download and access anything that's available on the internet. You can also modify the network configuration to allow, depending on what you're doing, if you would like to integrate with a customer environment. It's going to depend on the exact details, but this question is very important for the pre-sales use case, right? Because I can do this at scale, and maybe I try to replace POVs. We talked about, we have a customer that replaced 30% of all of their POVs with Instruct instead. But it's very important as a prospect, if I'm trying to evaluate software, that I integrate my tooling into that environment. And we do not restrict that access if you allow it. So yes, absolutely, that's something we would want to allow, especially for a use case for pre-sales where you'd want to have integrations done. Yes.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Derek, Mo, and Hank for your questions. We said we were going to keep this under 30 minutes, and we meant it. So again, feel free to reach out with further questions. Thank you for joining. Josh, thank you for going in depth, giving a demo here, and we look forward to speaking and seeing you all again.